Hello and welcome to The Question. If you're tired of being bombarded constantly by a bonkers news cycle where subjects are bland and samey and where presenters are afraid to say what they really think, then this is for you.
Yes, so we start with The Question, a show where we ask one question that you actually didn't know that you wanted the answer to until now, that is. We're going to debate it. We're possibly going to agree, possibly going to disagree with each other, who knows? And then we're going to ask the audience what they think, a selection of the public, and to see if they agree or disagree. And don't forget comments underneath in terms of what your view is. So we're going to kick off in our first episode with this. Are you ready?
I can't believe it, but yeah.
She knows what's coming. Okay, so buckle up. So picture the scene.
Okay.
You're at the airport. Mm-hmm. You go to check-in with your family and your bags, and you put your bags on the scales, and the bags are weighed to make sure that they're below a certain weight. Mm-hmm. Why does the airline do that?
I'm assuming they don't want heavy cargo because that consumes more fuel.
And more cost, right? Yeah, okay.
Cost.
So you can be a family that is 3 or 4 kilos over per bag and you have to pay a penalty. Mm-hmm. But you could be a family that's particularly lightweight yourselves in terms of your stature, but you still pay the penalty. Okay. You know where I'm going with this now.
Unfortunately.
So, but why is it then that behind you is a family of heavyweights, a family of individuals that are of a certain size with tiny little bags that are way under the 23 kilo limit? Heavyweights, sizable people, whatever term you want to use.
Oh my God.
Yet they can be actually in total, bags and people, much, much heavier than the family in front, but they don't get a penalty because we don't weigh people and charge them more for being heavier on a plane, despite the fact that it's all about weight and fuel costs. So
I'm assuming airlines make an allowance for this, right? So the allowance, they calculate sort of the luggage allowance based on what they would average the overall weight for the plane would be.
Well, I guess they'll take people's average weight, but
the problem is that average is moving up.
Well, it is, particularly in places like the United States, where I guess the average is probably, I don't know, whatever it is, 25 stone a person.
Over half the population is obese.
But my point is, if we accept the principle that baggage costs more if it's heavier, why don't we accept the principle that heavier passengers should pay more? So my question is, should heavier passengers, those that are overweight, those that are obese, should they pay more to fly than people that are lighter than them? There's a logic, right? I think there's a logic to it.
I get it, but that is deeply uncomfortable.
But why is it? Why is it?
I would say yes.
Well, because it's shaming.
Principle.
Because it's shaming.
Yeah, because you're going to have all these people say, it's not my fault, I'm overweight. Every time we have a conversation...
Whose fault is it then?
Yeah, but every time we have a conversation about obesity, I swear to God, 9 times out of 10, there's always that one person that will talk about their thyroid. And I'm like... Yes, but 90%
As in
of
everybody that's overweight has got an overactive or underactive thyroid.
Thyroid or something, or they have some sort of, or they're big boned,
yeah.
which was the term of the 2000s that has slowly phased out because science actually works.
Yeah. So and look, I'm not. This might seem as though I'm being fattest. I mean, I'm really not.
Is that the new word now?
What I'm trying to articulate is that there's almost a kind of an illogical approach in society to actually not wanting to confront the question of obesity, for instance.
I think it makes sense. I think, yes, they should pay more. I just think no airline would want the PR hell of having to have a bunch of heavyweights at their doorstep saying...
So even we're being sanitized and politically correct because 10 years ago, we'd be doing this and we'd just be talking about fat people.
Which is weird because in my family, we're not sanitized about it at all. Like every time, like if my family member sees us, oh, you got fat or you got skinny. I think in our day-to-day lives, when we have close friendships or like sort of family members, for instance, we're not sanitized at all. It's just in the public space. Yeah. We're so scared of offending.
But we're scared. Airlines are scared. Everybody's scared of talking about people that are overweight. And again, I bring it back to the logic of if bags are too heavy and they have to apply a penalty because of that and the fuel, then how can it not apply to people?
Because they argue that it's fat shaming, which I do think we still need a little bit more of in society. I'm gonna go on record and say fat shaming actually works because if you see that you're an outlier, right, it doesn't feel good, but at the end of the day, if the result is it can push you towards being a healthier weight, then it's a win-win for society, especially for the UK, where we have to pay towards our national health service. And obviously, most illnesses these days are caused by lifestyle. So it's not because people are getting malaria, for instance. It's mostly lifestyle-related illnesses like heart conditions, like,
So wouldn't it
diabetes,
be a rather
Type 2 diabetes.
convenient incentive if you were to be charged more to fly, if you were, let's say, 25 stone? What an incentive that would be to lose weight and therefore to be healthier generally.
I think it would be, but I think we should be talking about the obese here. I don't think someone with a little bit of cushion for pushing really should pay much. But
Sorry, a bit of what?
A little cushion for pushing,
Okay.
But I have been told on a flight and I was a teenager at this point. I was asked to move because
you were overweight?
No, I wasn't. I've never been overweight in my life, actually.
I doubt that very
but there
much.
was a massive family. Like the dad was woof, the mum was woof.
Like Mr. and Mrs. Creosote and their children.
They look like they ate my family. Anyway, no, let me not go there. But anyway, they were big. And I was asked to move, and at the time I wasn't happy about it because I'm like,
well, because they were so big.
yeah, I didn't put you in that state. Yeah. But they were like, oh, it's just, you can tell that the air hostess was really sort of trying to be very polite about it, because I think she got that it's a very awkward thing to ask.
So how far does this go then? So to your point that airlines take an average, which they must do, right?
Yeah.
So 200 passengers.
But the average is going up.
We know that the average is 12 stone, let's say. Yeah, if the average is going up, but let's say I and you and a low percentage of people stay slim. So we stay at our kind of what would be assessed as a normal acceptable weight, but the population gets bigger and bigger and bigger, fatter and fatter and fatter, which it is, right? Which it is here and across the world, particularly in certain parts of the world, the Western world. So is it fair that if airlines predominantly take the weight of the passengers and the cargo as instrumental in deciding what fares are, that actually slim people, those that look after themselves a bit better, those that are healthier, should unfairly pay to subsidise those that are overweight that don't do anything to help themselves in terms of their health?
Well, people would say that, they could be doing something, or they could be in the process, so don't judge them. But I think ultimately this argument is reverberated in a sort of wider discussion in society, like the NHS, where I am a young, healthy, fit woman. I hardly use the NHS, but I'm indirectly subsidizing someone who smoked and drank and eaten themselves into 40 years of an extremely unhealthy body and lifestyle, and I'm effectively subsidizing that. In principle, no, I shouldn't.
Although they might argue the amount of tax that they pay
doesn't
in
subsidise
alcohol duty and tobacco duty kind of mitigates that to an extent.
I
think the bigger problem is it's food. I mean,
Yeah,
look, okay,
exactly.
smoking kills, alcohol kills, we know all that, but food is as big a problem in terms of obesity and the effect it has on propensity for cancer, heart disease, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
But again, if we end up being a society, a culture, and particularly a government that doesn't want to talk about obesity, then how do we solve the problem?
Yeah, because everything we say about obesity can go down the rabbit hole of fat shaming. And I'm like, well, why is that a bad thing?
Yeah.
Realistically, I know that sounds horrible and stuff like that, but I feel like we, in an effort to always protect people's feelings, we're choosing to shun issues we really should be talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the first time in period in history where people of a lower sort of socioeconomic status, or let's just put it, poorer people, are actually weighing more than richer people.
Yeah.
And
because fast food is cheap.
yeah, exactly. But it's not just fast food, it's about choices as well. And it's about, listen, I don't think being broke being, not broke necessarily, but being poor is an excuse to be fat. You can make choices, you can research your food. You can eat rice and chicken and veg, and that will probably do a lot more good than constantly taking out kebabs and Chinese food and all these sort of takeout.
So do we see a time, do you think, where Michael O'Leary from Ryanair, and I only use him as an example because Ryanair, of course, have been in the press over many years. There was the fake story about Ryanair were going to charge you to go to the toilet, do you remember?
Yeah.
And the fake story about seats that weren't really seats, but you'd pay less to stand up on a plane rather than sit down. all of this stuff that I think largely is not true. But look, Ryanair have a certain reputation for, let's just say, being innovative and creative
That's
when
hilarious.
it comes to how much they
they're always
they
trying
can
to
earn out
save.
of their passengers.
Yeah.
So do we see a time where the likes of Ryanair start to say, actually, there is a logic to this, and maybe if you are over 20 stone, we are going to weigh people at check-in and charge them more?
I actually think we'll get to that point because Ryanair doesn't care.
So do you want to know what the public think?
Yes, please.
So as part of this show, so Esther and I come up with these questions, we debate them as we've just done, and hopefully you're busy commenting below. Some of you will think this is an outrageous subject to be talking about. Some will be nodding and saying, yeah, okay, there's a logic to that, and so on. Look, we're going to raise the questions that, yeah, you didn't know that you needed the answers to. But what we've actually done also, and we'll do this on every show, is to ask the public. So we go out to the public before we go and shoot this and ask 500 people what they think of exactly this question. So we asked those 500 people this at random this morning. Would you believe, and we've split this into gender, just because I think that's interesting. And if anybody's interested in the raw data, we can actually split this by age and all sorts of stuff, because the survey company that we use is pretty analytical in that respect. Would you believe that 39% of men agree that you should pay more to fly if you're overweight? 21% of women believe that too. But just as interesting, I think, is that 19% of men don't know. So they're not a definite no.
Yeah.
And 28% of women don't know. So actually, when you add that up, I think this is remarkable. The majority of men and women
See a case for it.
see a case for it, or don't feel sufficiently aggrieved by the question to say a definite no.
Yeah.
So if I were advocating for fatter people to pay more on flights, I think I would have won the argument.
I think so. Yeah, I think most people see a case for it, which is which is interesting.
But as you say, which airline will have the
Oh, it'll definitely
the
be
balls
Ryanair.
to go
It'll
and do it?
definitely be Ryanair.
Let's see. So look, let us know what you think. Hopefully you found this outrageous, interesting, whatever. That's a matter for you. But look, we've raised the question and hopefully given you some kind of
Something to
answer,
think about,
whether you agree with it or not. And hopefully you'll join us again next time.
And do not forget to subscribe.
See you next time.